Okay, very good. So hi, Dan Goldstein here. I am the ARRL East Bay Section Emergency Coordinator. I'm also Administrative Sergeant for the Alameda County Sheriff's Communications Team and the Emergency Communications Mutual Aid Coordinator for California Region 2. Great.
My name is Greg Waters. I'm with Humboldt County Sheriff Office of Emergency Services, and I am the program coordinator for the department. And one of my duties is to help facilitate education and training to local area partners, and also provide opportunities to participate in exercises as well. So for tonight's agenda, we're going to go over some introductions, and then the planning process of the exercise itself, the summary and scenario of the exercise, some of the objectives, test days, and just before the exercise, what was the outcome, the after action review, and any questions and answers. So I did put available, or this will be available for review. Some of the information being presented will not be entirety. A lot of the information will be left in the PowerPoint. So if you do review the PowerPoint, you'll notice that there's going to be a lot more information. That's what will be presented tonight. So this is our contact information. We already kind of did quick introductions. Anything else there, Dan, leaving out?
Oh, no, I think we're ready to go.
Okay. All right. So the exercise planning process, we had a standing committee, which is basically the primary group of volunteers that were requested to participate and help organize and develop the exercise. Luckily, this year was our second year, so a lot of the planning was basically adding or correcting or improving on what was suggested from last year's after action report and discussions we had with many of the participants. And so we also had a few subcommittees as well. One of them was the Situation Manual Task Force. This group was tasked with developing all the documents that were used for the exercise. If you're not familiar with the term situation manual, you can think of it kind of like as the incident action plan or a guide for what's called a Homeland Security Exercise Evaluation Plan. And basically that's what the FEMA uses as a guide for all types of different levels of exercises. And the reason we chose to do it this way is we wanted to, and we'll discuss this further on, is being compliant is really a good seller when it comes to trying to incorporate paid staff. That was one of the target audiences that we wanted to incorporate into participation, because many paid staff like myself are required every year to participate in HC exercises. And so by doing it this way, this was a way of making sure that they would be able to participate. But I won't go into too much of all the documents, but we did create quite a few. Next is the Operational Area Task Force. This was actually subdivided into two other groups. One was a local OA support task group, and another one was a regional. The local area task force was basically for each group, each county that was participating or plan on participating, to help work with their local operational area partners. That's a term we use colloquially for those that are in the county, and also work either at a state level, federal level, national level, and also down to the city level as well. And so we want to incorporate those that would be potential partners that would want to help participate, but also making sure that the exercise was geared towards something that would be relevant to them. Due to the fact that the exercise was initially supposed to be only a few counties and quickly grew, we wanted to make sure that we didn't have a exercise that wasn't relevant for them. The next group is the regional group, which basically is a support group that would help other groups that would provide either solutions or bring up problems they're having. And for helping with mutual aid, this also helped facilitate the discussion of how each group can learn from each other's design, making it relevant for them as well. The last group is the After Action Review Task Force. We are currently in that position right now. We have a group of individuals, Dan is one of them as well. And what it is basically we are gathering the data from the participants that participated. We have data from those that registered. We have quite a few that did not register, which is fine. That was not a requirement to participate in the exercise. But we also had the documents like the participant feedback forms, the ICS 214, which is an activity log, the communications log, the 213 general message forms. We also had people that were also designated as observers and also controllers and evaluators. So we had evaluation forms from those groups as well. And what we're going to do is basically compare those notes that people provided this year to last year. And hopefully in the future, other similar types of exercises, we can use this to help build trend analysis so we can start seeing where not only areas of improvement, but significant changes from the changes we've made. Dan?
Oh, no, I wasn't putting my hand up. I'm sorry.
Okay. So the exercise scenario, which everyone's probably wondering what it was all about. So the scenario is this was a functional exercise planned for an estimated about 5 hours, roughly 16 counties. But that ended up being about 10 counties that did end up participating, but 15 in total that actually did participate. We have a local, we have a state emergency operation management known as Cal OES, and they did not participate, but they were aware of this. Players, both paid and volunteer, would play similar roles that they would normally be assigned during an actual emergency incident. Players were asked to perform as in a real emergency. Players were limited to just their knowledge, policies, department policies, and documents. During the exercise, players were asked to refrain from the use of the internet, wireless phones, for other than use for the exercise, because this year we did incorporate using the use of text messaging and landlines for the purpose of the exercise as well. Due to constraints, some portions of the exercise were accelerated. What this exercise was not, and this is very critical, this was not an exercise to test equipment, to test modes, or to test who you can contact. This was a policy and procedure test only. Scenario was that the coast of California was hit with a major earthquake. Internet and wireless communication was severely impacted. Key word is impacted, not destroyed. Thus, auxiliary communications would be activated to assist emergency operations centers communications. Local operational area partners would be activated by local OES. Emergency operations staff would be approximately 2 to 3 hours past the initial incident. EOC staff would create mutual aid requests and send them to other coastal region counties. An added level of realism was injected into the exercise by requiring players to send resource status updates to their operational partners, both in the region and also in their own counties as well. So the exercise objectives, we wanted, again, test communication systems. And this means not just radios, as many exercise, for groups that participate in exercise, would focus on. This is also meaning to test how people talk person to person. How do they talk on the radio? How do they talk to other operational partners? And so we wanted to make sure that this was a key point, is that this is not just a radio exercise. We wanted to make sure that we would assess coordination. Teams would assess their ability to communicate and establish spontaneous net management of either radios or by text messages as well. They would practice, again, protocols and procedures. We are not going to, and we did not dictate in the exercise situation manual how local policies and procedures were supposed to be carried out. That was basically at the local level to decide on how to proceed on that. However, those groups that did not have the access to their local policies and procedures, there were general ideas or information provided. So groups that did not have access, that did not participate with their local EOC, would still be able to participate without those information. We wanted to also make sure we could evaluate message clarity and accuracy. Many times, especially during when you have groups of these two types of both paid staff and volunteers, many times they operate in a silo, and what happens is they tend to lean towards more jargon that they're used to. And for this exercise, we wanted to make sure we use what's called clear text, where we basically say what we mean what we say. And that also means when you're talking across different organizations and with emergency management as well. We wanted to identify weakness in areas of improvement, which most exercises would do anyways, but also we want to make sure we promote interagency collaboration, which is also another key point of this exercise. The exercise is not the end, it is a building up to. And what I mean by this is that we had points before the exercise where groups could test their own equipment, but also collaborate, like I mentioned before. The operational area partner, regional and local groups would meet and develop communication plans, share communication plans, but also identify what equipment they have and how they would operate during the exercise, so they would know which groups they could contact or would be able to contact as well. Dan, you want to maybe give a little quick discussion about what we did last year about collaborating to test the equipment?
Right, sure. Yeah. So, in California, at least in our part of California, we don't have the same experience that other parts of our country have. In areas where they've got hurricanes and tornadoes, the radio teams are probably very well practiced, well rehearsed. And, I've heard Barry speak very eloquently about how well things come together there in Florida and in other parts of the country. And so having a training, an exercise that simulates an actual disaster in what the end-to-end expectations are and how a communication is received, how it's delivered, how it's followed up and returned back to the center, and all of the different moving parts was really key for us, and dovetails in with what we call the mutual aid training, which is more than just backfilling positions with other trained operators, but really how does the whole communication apparatus work when it's off grid? So FRS, GMRS, amateur radio operators, how do they interact with each other? How do they maintain local breadth of scope for dealing with an emergency? Like, someone makes a chainsaw request, that kind of request shouldn't go up to the county and up to the state. It should actually go from this neighborhood to that neighborhood. And if it has to go maybe from this city to that city, but generally just getting people to recognize, as they do in the rest of the country from experience, that serving the emergency response locally is the best approach. And so this exercise really drills that in, drills it home, and gives people that experience of how that might look in an actual disaster.
Yeah, great point. When it comes to flexibility, that's also a key point as well, as we want to make sure that those that would be participants understood the complexity of the exercise, but also the flexibility of using what they have and not being forced into using equipment or starting to learn equipment that they're not familiar with. And also, we had so many different groups of different levels of expertise and different levels of support from their either EOC or their county or supporting groups, that we want to make sure that all groups had a caveat so that they could still participate, but also learn from the exercise as well. And so the post exercise is also what we also want to focus on in as well. And what we started last year is a network where we both use amateur and also shares radio frequencies to develop a monthly net. And what that net is for is to share updates on how the exercise was going in the planning process, but also in the post exercise planning for next year, but also developing that rapport with those other counties and other groups so we could provide support to each other and we can learn from how we're operating, but also practice as well. Last year, what we did out with Alameda is we tested some more advanced features that we both received in a communication purchase a few years ago. Currently, the state is not promoting or pushing this. However, we thought it would be prudent to look forward to and lean forward in developing skill set for these more advanced features when they do become more available to the general group in the state. And then also maintaining the coordination. We want to make sure we don't lose touch with the group, especially when it comes to either high turnover or lack of or loss of communication with the other groups. We want to make sure that especially the smaller groups don't feel that they're lost and they have to operate on their own. We want to make sure that they feel welcome regardless of the size. And then the interagency collaboration. We want to make sure that after the exercise and after the things that were learned were shared both locally and regionally. So again, we can also share and learn from what was done. So,
and one key point that actually came out of that is that the radio teams, at least the one so far in Alameda County, but I see it growing throughout the Bay Area here, is better coordination with the CERT teams. So part of that mutual aid plan calls for embedding amateur radio operators within the CERT teams. And because of this exercise and the recognition that we are going to be relying on CERT teams who primarily use FRS and GMRS, there is now an RFP out to supply GMRS radio repeaters for the 14 Bay Area UASI jurisdictions. So not only is the training equipping people, but it's also equipping the relationships.
That's great to hear. So for the pre-exercise test days, we scheduled for this year, similar as last year, 2 days where we would test the equipment. As I mentioned earlier, the May 1st test, or excuse me, the May 1st exercise, that was a policy and procedure. But leading up to the exercise, what we did is we scheduled a local OA test day, which is Saturday, February 22nd. And that was basically a day where all the counties, they didn't have to talk to each other, but all the counties would help facilitate their local operational area partners to find out what equipment works and what doesn't. Basically, can members talk to members? Can members talk to team leaders? Can CERT teams talk to other CERT teams? Can you talk to other operational area partners? And so that was a day to basically give enough time in between the next test day to figure out what needs to be resolved. And that leads up to the regional test day. And that's where county to county would test to see if they could talk to each other as well. Unlike where we are here in Humboldt County in Northern California, many of the counties in, say, like the Bay Area are able to talk to each other using VHF radio to radio. We do not have that luxury here in Humboldt County. So we rely mainly on HF radio to do that. However, we did test both amateur and shares and also WinLink on that day as well. And we worked out really well. One of the key things about the test day, especially regional-wise, is we developed what was called a pre-exercise point of contact, or the PEPOC. What they were volunteers that were designated by their either local group in their county or self-designated to be the spokesperson to help facilitate answering questions when it came to the test days and the actual exercise day as well. And these really help because it allow, instead of myself as the exercise director to dictate or coordinate how each region or each operational area should operate, they have a subject matter expert in their own area that can help facilitate and answer those questions, and it worked out really well. So some of the performance highlights from this year, again, we are still in the preliminary analysis mode for the after action. So we don't have all the data from last year, but we can go over this year a little bit. So we did have 103 people register. We did have 6 more than last year. Again, we had 10 counties participate, 15 total did register, but for one reason or another, they didn't participate. So 5 didn't. But on our initial review of last year and also comparing it from this year, we did see a strong tendency for agreement when it came to that they were actively involved, meaning that they felt that the exercise was to a level that they felt like they were learning something from it. Also, the exercise was plausible. They felt better prepared leading up to, during, and after the exercise, which is a good thing to hear. And also the briefings were informative. One of the key things I wanted to make sure, and I think Dan can attest, there were lots of opportunity to attend the meetings, whether a standing committee or a subcommittee or a support groups like the operational area partners. Any other comments on that, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to point out, first of all, there were a lot of meetings, and those meetings, each one of them carried forward the activity from the meeting before it. So I really felt like it was time well invested. We had partnerships that were developing. So, for example, one month you might have the same 5 people, and then in the next month you might have a different set. Some of the same 5, but a different set of people. And what that did is that really contributed to having a lot of different perspectives weighing in on what the training should look like. But it also meant that those folks were receiving the benefit of hearing what focus areas of training should be addressed. And then those people would carry that back to their own groups. And so it was a great way of disseminating information, not only about the training itself, but the content of the training. And so that part was really good. But for me, what was really outstanding was the documentation. Greg did an exceptional job of pulling all the documentation together. I had people tell me that the documentation and the training and the exercise were exactly what they've been hoping for the entire time that they've been involved in emergency communications. And frankly, I've been involved in EMCOM for about 15 years, and it really, really satisfied a need for me as well. From a training perspective, from an exercise perspective, there really hasn't been anything nearly as in-depth, as involved, and on point that I've seen.
Thank you for that. But obviously it was a collaborative effort, and if it wasn't for all the other counties and groups, we did have lots of different groups. Like Dan mentioned earlier, we had CERT, we had Aries Races, also groups known as ACS here in California, all Auxiliary Communication Services. We did have quite a few government as well. We did have the average it was about 6 years of people that have been in volunteer groups. The radio exercise experience between 1 and 5 years, radio experience 1 to 5 years. Interesting enough, the very low level of actual Aries Races or ACS experience. The average age was 60 or above. Radio licenses, amateur shares, or none. Again, this was 2024. And then we did have extra technician or none. Kind of the aha moments or things we'd like to point out. One of them was we had an older generation, which we knew, but wasn't prepared for how low of the experience. That was kind of an interesting, based off feedback forms that were presented. We knew we had a high number of radio extras, but wasn't prepared for the big gaps in the licenses. So we had quite a few people with extras, quite a few people with technician level, but not in between. So there was a big gap in there. Not that there needs to be across the board, even Steven, but it was interesting in that. And also the radio operators were enthusiastic to participate, but wasn't prepared for OES to still have still had the impression it wasn't for them, meaning we had quite a few emails and phone calls during this year's planning where even again I had to try to explain that this exercise was for both volunteer and paid. And many times when we send out messages to the emergency managers throughout the state, they would instinctively push it to their auxiliary communication groups. And we would try to let them know that, no, we want you a part of it as well. And that's why we had it on a Thursdays, because it was during a normal business day, which it did limit the number of volunteers, but it also opened the opportunity more for having the higher level supervisors and administration to observe. And for Humboldt County, we did have that. We had quite a few operational partners in our EOC, and also some higher level administration observed for a little bit as well. So that gave them the opportunity, instead of operating and hearing after the fact, they were able to see in real time, which was kind of also an aha moment for them, because they got to see the time it took to create messages, to interpret messages, and also send and receive messages, whether it be by voice or WinLink as well.
And I think it's partly because we really just don't have that same level of experience with disasters that other parts of the country have, that we're really literally having to have conversations with our career staff to let them know that in an incident that we radio operators need to know how we're going to be transferring information. So we're going to be getting, situation reports as well as, official EMMA requests and unofficial ones. And how do we integrate what we do in with the career staff? So I did embark on that conversation, and that conversation is developing in our county. But I'm also going to be taking that conversation to the region, because it's an important one. Nobody does what auxiliary communicators do. We are unique in what we do, and we really do need to have the support of our career emergency staff for things like rumor control and situation reports, and being able to broaden that two-way communication out to the neighborhoods.
Excellent point. Yeah. During the development of last year and this year, I was in contact with numerous groups, from the manager of shares and also WinLink in Washington, D.C. and Texas. So they weren't involved in the process per se, but they were well aware of our development of the exercise. So as any exercise, we want to obviously learn from the exercise as the whole point of it. And a quick recap of what it is we want to know what happened, what was supposed to happen, what went well, and what are the gaps and needs for improvement. And so we don't want to point fingers, but we want to look at some of those areas. And some of those areas are either some things that have occurred regularly, meaning that in other exercise we've seen issues, or they new ones or something similar. Just a few of the ones that we noticed were instructions. We noticed that players requested better outline. They wanted better information. So we're going to make sure that they get all the information. Again, not only the having the OA support groups, but also in the development maybe for other tabletop exercises that would relate to this. And I'll get into more of that a little bit later. But also, one of the things that was a recurring areas of improvement is following standardized emergency management system. And what that is basically an organizational chart of how information is to flow during an emergency or disaster. And this is really critical because we want to make sure that when it comes to resource management, we don't skip around or bypass certain groups because we want to, or we feel that we're doing it for the greater good, when in fact, we may be causing more harm. And a good example of this is that a single point of contact, or SPOC, is typically at a county level or at the county emergency operations center. They're the ones that usually help facilitate mutual aid across other counties and also to the state level as well. The problem is that many times some groups felt that because that they were either not getting enough response or enough quote unquote practice, that they would seek out other groups to communicate with it, or not in their region or in their county. The problem is that in a real disaster situation, what they might inadvertently do is request, one, without administrative authority, but two, either double up or miss an opportunity for resource management requesting to go through the proper channels. And so therefore, it's one of those things that we may look into the future as far as how we can help facilitate to follow this system. The next one is documentation. This is both volunteer and for staff as well. This is one of the chronic things we deal with. A quick side note, one of my duties while the program manager for OES, I'm also the plannings chief for our emergency operations center. I'm also incident management team qualified type 3. And so the thing is I typically get assigned for incident management as a plannings chief, and documentation is one of the key things that I focus on. And the thing is that it's often overlooked as something that is not very important. However, when you're dealing with something, especially with a large scale, it's very critical to make sure that you have accurate, again, one of our objectives is that the information flows, but also accurately as well. We want to make sure that if anything happens, say, for instance, if someone got hurt, that we can have documentation that can support that the actions that were taken in a safe manner, because we do have documentation and briefings to show to operate, how to operate in a safe way. And if that, for some reason, that person or persons got injured, we can make sure that they can get the support they need in either workman's comp or insurance claims that they need, so that's all documented correctly. Another good thing about documentation is it helps finance, obviously, the disaster, but during mitigation times, or what we call blue skies, it helps when it comes to grants and also getting funding, because what that does is it helps show that community groups are active during blue skies when everything is working, and that they can show to their supporting groups that they are not sitting idle waiting, but they are actually actively mitigating, trying to better themselves. And so we want to make sure that that documentation represents and accurately shows that they are doing that. Another area of concern is mission creep. Many times people want to assist, like I said earlier, they want to either go outside their area or outside their task. Unfortunately, they may also inadvertently miss or stop providing the task service that they were assigned. So this is something we felt that many wanted to do, but we want to make sure that they don't want to be confined, but we also don't want to miss the point of the exercise, making sure that they follow the policy and procedure, not only for their local area, but also when working with other groups, that they don't inadvertently cause problems by going outside their lane, so to say. Dan, do you have any more comments?
No, it's good.
Some of the proposed areas of improvement that we're looking at, like I said earlier, we're looking at doing a tabletop exercise, reviewing the standardized emergency management system. So we'll basically have 6 months, or maybe in between that time, have either a virtual or in-person review for local area partners, just to review how a flow of information should look. We want to make sure that people don't feel left out. So obviously we're going to partner again with our local partners and regional partners to help facilitate that action and see how we can better reach those groups that either participated this time or did not participate, and find out why they didn't participate. And this might be an avenue for them that they may feel comfortable to participate in instead of a full functional scale exercise. Another thing is we're going to incorporate into the situation manual the organizational chart as well for the SEMS as well. Within that, we're also going to have what's called a Reader's Digest version of the situation manual. We did provide a 1 and 2 page outline of the exercise to use as a form of outreach to participants, and also for participants to outreach as well. The situation manual itself, due to the amount of questions and also concerns, it quickly grew to 57 pages. A lot of them were reference documents to use during the exercise with instructions, but many found that the situation manual was far beyond what they felt was their scope of practice. And so therefore, this next time we're looking into is developing a Reader's Digest version that's more digestible. So basically between 7 to 10 pages that still includes many of the good information, but may not include all the documents that they can use for reference, but more of a document for a job description, so they'll better understand the modules in the exercise, but also the scope of their practice as well.
I would like to add, though, that the documentation that you created really helped people with very little experience, as well as people that had a lot of experience. So there was, rich content in there, and the way that you organized it, that PDF document where you can click the link and it takes you right to the section on what to do, was very handy. So great feedback on that.
Good point. Thank you for bringing that up. So as earlier mentioned, there was a Google folder that was allowed for anyone to access. So that was provided to anyone. It wasn't just for participants. And as Dan mentioned, the PDFs that were created in the mind of quick access. And that leads me to the quick reference guide. The quick reference guide is actually designed to be kind of a choose your own adventure when it comes to radio net and also emergency text messaging as well. It's designed to be used with Adobe Reader, and you can click on buttons to go based on the type of net. If you're going to do a spontaneous net, if you're going to do a scheduled net, if you're going to do an emergency net, or if you have contingency nets, repeaters going down, power failure, even a spontaneous volunteer, or that one radio operator that just won't leave you alone and cause you nothing but headache. Basically, the person that's causing you problems. So we have a net for that as well. So I'm going to update that as well and provide that to operators, and also provide an opportunity to train with it as well, both locally and regionally as well, because we want, again, those that are not familiar with, say, like paid staff, that can look at these documents like the quick reference guide. And if they know how to use a public safety radio, but they may not know the ins and outs of, say, like amateur radio protocol, they can look at this quick reference guide and quickly adapt to it fairly quickly. And then also the frequently asked questions as well. I created a document, and it became quickly a living document. And what I mean by that is, through the process of updating this year's exercise, many people came back with either similar type questions or new questions, which was also good to hear. And so by doing that, I added more frequently asked questions to a PDF document. And the quick reference guide will have the frequently asked questions as well. It's just that the quick reference guide will have it available so that you can quickly go to a tab and it'll go to the answer, versus we'll have an independent frequently asked questions as well, separate from the quick reference guide. So that will be available to anyone that's interested as well. And again, they're going to be left up so that throughout the year, many groups have already expressed interest that they want to use the documents and also the supporting documents to develop their own exercise locally. And so therefore, that's why this folder will be left up open. And when we do come up with an update, we'll make note in the folder that there is an update, but we'll keep this available for anyone else as well. So when is the next beacon exercise? Tentatively, we are looking at Thursday, April 30th. That is, again, a date that we pick for a few reasons. One I mentioned earlier is on a Thursday, allowing normal business operations, meaning that the paid staff will not have to take overtime, so they don't have to operate on the weekend or at night. Also, this allows for the following day for a quick hot wash for if groups want to have a hot wash after the exercise, separate from other groups, meaning if this paid staff or volunteer staff want to have a hot wash, but still within normal business hours, they can do that as well. And so this is still tentative. Like I said earlier, we did have, and we're looking forward to next year, more counties, more operational partners, federal, state, and county and local levels to participate. So if you're interested in outside the county, we actually had someone from Georgia that actually participated this year. So if others want to participate, they can. If they want to, they can contact me or Dan. Any questions?
If any questions, raise your hands, or if it's not that many, just raise your hands to be a lot easier, or put it in chat. I have a question for both of you. In all the years that I've been doing this, is always the need to improve emergency communications, and we don't seem to be making a lot of headway. What do you think we can do to improve that? And Tom, I'll get right to you real quick.
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. And, you know, from my experience, there's two things that need to happen. One of them is letting people know that a training like this exists. So in communities where people are driven by need to develop a training program or develop the skills because they've had disasters in their community, of course, those people are going to already be well equipped and already understand the need for training and practice and following up and developing those skills. But in places like California, where the natural disasters are relatively speaking few and far between, but you know potentially very dangerous as well, it really kind of becomes you know a conversation that has to happen. In other words, we have to raise awareness that the training does exist and what the need for it is. And quite frankly, this training exercise has really done more to energize people in coming around to emergency communications than any other single event that I've seen. Not the wildfires that we've had, not the ground shakes, although they haven't been big ones, but even the '89 quake didn't really stimulate the kind of response that we've seen just by having this exercise. And I should point out, although it's one exercise on May 1, it's got multiple parts to it. It's the coming together to do the planning and having multiple planning training sessions, just an hour a week, sometimes over the course of 3 or 4 months, but then also the February and March get together 4-hour tabletop type training exercises. And in combination of that and being able to talk about the need for people to understand the mutual aid concept and how that benefits them, how the focus is shifted from simply supplying a backup communications for the agency to one of a new primary focus of serving two-way communications down to the neighborhoods and how that is actually achieved. All of that is really stimulated a lot of conversation. And then on top of that, to have the quality documentation. So not just talking about it, but having quality documentation where people can see and learn instantly with very little experience or the great deal of experience, be able to latch on to and recognize the quality of that documentation has just been really, I think, energizing for emergency communicators in our region.
Okay, great. No job is done until the paperwork is complete. Tom, go ahead.
Thank you. I didn't follow something Greg said about the radios that volunteers were using. I caught the part about GMRS, and that's great news. I'd like to see that idea spread. But I didn't, you said something about which radios volunteers had to use during actual work. And was it that the radios are provided or that they bring their own? I got mixed up there.
So as we discussed, we wanted to make sure teams use their equipment that they had. We did have some teams that had a mixture of both GMRS, FRS, and amateur radio. Locally, we had some groups that worked have access to public safety radios. We had some groups that use what are called itinerant frequencies, which in California, there's a group called FSTI, and it is a nonprofit that were purchased for itinerant frequencies for California for use for CERT teams that allows, as long as you're under a CERT group, operate under the license umbrella of these FSTI itinerant frequencies. So we have some groups that operate on those as well. And so we also had some groups that used a mixture of text messaging because I didn't go into detail, but the reason we incorporated text messaging this year is one, many times disasters are not a complete failure. It's more of overload of the communications infrastructure. And texting, what we found in recent events, even for here in Humboldt County, we've had numerous shakes where it's impacted our communications. Text message seems to still work, may limp along for a few hours or days, but typically it still operates. And therefore, it also opens up the availability to who can also participate. We had a few groups, like we had a few hospitals and clinics participate this year using text message checking into our EOC. And so we didn't want to dictate, but we wanted to make sure they had a plan, because they may have the equipment, but they had no idea how to either contact another group or what was the protocol. And so that was the purpose of the operational area support group, is that they would have a local area plan in place so they knew where to start.
And if I can just add on to that, I would like to point out that the National Emergency Communications Plan has auxiliary communications as a component. And the definition of auxiliary communications is pretty much whatever works. So, so one of the things that we're teaching in the mutual aid plan is to accept the fact that there are going to be different modes of communication. And in fact, with the rise in availability and lowering cost of satellite internet capability, we incorporate that as well. And so we talk to teams about, for example, how the CERT teams are more likely to be on FRS and GMRS, but they might be on CB. We want to promote standardization because it just makes the whole, training and operations easier. But we have to respect the fact that people are going to come equipped with whatever they have. And, to the degree that they do standardize, it makes it easier to incorporate them. But we just need to be open to the idea that whatever's going to get the message through, that's what's important.
Thank you. That's very helpful. If I may throw in a comment that you may find instructive and entertaining. During the bicentennial Operation Sale in Boston, the city sent their emergency services communications volunteers down to a storeroom in the lowest level of the city building to get the communications equipment. When they opened the door, they were faced with 40 Gonset Communicator 3s, complete with the Civil Defense logo and
Wow.
all the associated equipment. They were fully kitted, but the volunteers had to figure out how to use 48-volt DC generators
Whoa.
to run 48-volt DC motor alternators to produce the 120 volts AC that the Gonsets wanted to see. And yet, those volunteers did it in very short order and staffed all the communications points that the Coast Guard was begging to have staffed right on schedule. But you
That's
know,
outstanding.
to be faced with that kind of, I've never seen this before, and still come through with flying colors, I
They
thought was
probably still use
amazing.
those radios today.
Say again?
They probably still use those radios today.
Well, no, the mayor and several other people were so shocked when they saw them that they got together with the council and they did something about new radios. I don't know what they did. Probably don't want to know, but
Oh, you
they
don't.
should have sold those at auction. They'd have made some money.
Maybe so.
Okay, thank you.
When you have so many different radio groups, it makes it harder on the COML because he has to coordinate all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So you want to simplify it as much as you can.
Yeah, we try to send a message about standardization, certainly leaving open to the possibility that people can buy whatever they want and use whatever they want. But for example, when people ask me what radios do we use, I say, well, you know, the radio that the radio that you use the most is probably the one you want to get. And what I mean by that is, you know, I've got a couple of ICOM radios that I paid hundreds of dollars for, but honestly, I don't take them out in the field with me very much because quite frankly, I'm afraid to lose it or have it stolen, right? And so this $25 or $35 Quansheng radio, if I lose a $25 radio, I'm not going to be as aggravated as one that costs several $100s. So I often advise people, especially ones that are just getting started, just get something that you're going to feel comfortable carrying with you. And oh, by the way, if you show up to our meetings, we'll help you program it. We'll give you all the programming you need so you can stay in touch with us. And
That's actually a good point. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dan.
no, that was the point.
I forgot to mention, if you do go in that folder, you'll see a subfolder for Humboldt, and actually does have programming code plugs, because we did standardize our code plug programming and also communication plan, so that most of the groups in our area use like about 4 or 5 different radios per group. And so what we did is we created a code plug, and also cloning capability. So now most of our CERT teams, and actually all of our CERT teams, are all programmed the same. And so we do have some variants. Some radios have VHF, UHF, some are only VHF, but the names are the same, the sequence is the same, and the functions are the same. So if someone says turn to channel SIM 43, everyone knows where that is and knows how to get to it and what it's for. So
That helps with mutual aid too.
yes, and that's what we did. We shared it with our neighboring counties as well, and they did vice versa. They shared their basic communication plan with us. So we actually have our neighboring county programmed as well. So if we have to mutual aid with our neighboring county, which in our area happens quite often because we're so, one, remote, and two, our population is so low that we can get a run out of resources really quick. And just like our neighboring counties, so we send resources to them quite often.
And one of my colleagues is currently creating from an ICS 217 that I created for all Region 2 county radio teams. I don't have all the cities in there, but the county radio teams. And he's turning that into basically a website where you select what county you want, and it will give you the code plug for it. So we should have that up and running sometime soon, probably within the next month.
That's one of the challenges of mutual aid, is being sure that you're equipped and they're equipped and everything is standardized as you can, channel-wise, especially in DMR, when there are so many different kinds of code plugs to get everybody's radios programmed on the right way.
Yeah, that's true. That is a challenge.
Wildfire work makes you lazy because those 3 COMTs sitting in camp won't let you get off the apparatus before they get your radios away from you and hand them back to you standardized for that fire.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that too, because as technology gets more advanced, it also gets more restricted. An example of that is like with Motorola. My Motorola that's issued to me, unfortunately, if I go to a fire base camp, I can't get it reprogrammed with that fire communications. because of licensure agreement with Motorola and the program plug. And so what we do is we have a cache of old Binix Kings. We keep those available, so when we do go to fire camps, we can get those quickly reprogrammed for just the incident response, and it helps with interoperability.
All right, anybody have any more questions? Raise your hands, put anything in chat. There's nothing in chat, so we're good there. Thank you both. This was a very interesting presentation.
Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. It's also nice meeting some of you guys. You're kind of like superstars of this field. You've been around for a few years. You know your way around. Your service to the community is commendable, but I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness with you guys.
And hopefully we'll have you back next year to do the same presentation about next year's exercise.
Sounds good.
Yep, that'd be great. Yeah. Thank you very much.
One more last
Thank you.
time.